And I'm back with more .hack GU, and this dungeon's gonna suck. But I'm level 146 and 145, so it's not that bad. But, Hidden Forbidden Sin Realm. The Forest of Pain. Nunos.
Nunos.
Oh.
Pretty exciting, huh?
The Forest of Pain. Wow. It feels like it's been years since I was here. Let's go.
Okay. So this dungeon is going to be a lot of the forest level with a little tinge to it. You can't get item storage, you can't do other things. Really, it's just a 100 level dungeon.
Tabby. She told me in her message that she would be at the entrance. Wait a sec. Did she go in by herself?
So yeah, we gotta go. Phase bonuses. 5 blocks Forest of Pain gives a phase bonus. Complete the conditions. Get a special item. Okay. Well, 25 hit combo is doable. But yes, I'm gonna go the first 50 levels.
You think you can beat me?
And, I saved this for this area because it seemed appropriate, given that this was the original spot where you get Tabby and all that.
Come on. There's gotta be someone better.
Okay, yeah, as long as Shino stays out of the way, she'll gain levels. So, not a big deal. But you get items for being in here, you get Chim Spheres for being in here, all that junk. I wish I had like a no encounters thing, because apparently that's something you can get. But later on. But really, what I wanted to talk about was romance in .hack. And this is something that I've expressed before, and I think the ending tried to keep it open-ended, which is kind of funny considering my personal preference on the whole marriage thing, because it is not a legitimate marriage, it's a marriage in the world, though people have used online marriages before as their own real-life marriages, but it's this game's equivalent to that. So, to throw in a mechanic that says, hey, we're going to do marriage, essentially, and you have the option of, you know, being a best friend with somebody. So, say, for instance, Yata or Bo or somebody. Like, you could just say best friends, you know, Syllabus or Gaspard, you know, shit like that. They've made it so that any character that you want could get that promise. Some of them are dumb. Some of them are not so dumb. Some of them are unique.
You're open.
But really, by and large, am I going to show off all of them? No. There's already a video on YouTube about that. If you want to look up all of them, I'll show all of them. I don't think I've made it any secret all playthrough who I'm picking. But to even get to that point, you have to get pink 5, which is the pink heart symbol, and 5. So Alcade needs to get up 2 more spots to do that. Shino, thanks to the barbecue plate stuff, has gotten up closer, but still a ways away. But really, to me, it's about kind of weighing personal preferences. And I've said from the very beginning that I know that the game is kind of they've been leaning into Shino, Alcade, and Adley. But Dot Hack Roots, to an extent, more unrequited way, even sort of leans towards Tabby, but only so much as that she's mentioned. I think there was an episode of Dot Hack Roots later where she mentioned she likes him, but I don't think it goes anywhere. And I think it's like he mishears her, or she doesn't even get heard, or she just gives up. But
Oh yeah, piece of cake.
But Tabby likes Haseo. So if you wanted to venture into that route, though there's been no indication at all, this game doesn't even mention her, it's like, what's the point? You know, you wouldn't even know to look at it unless if you'd watched Roots all the way through. At least with this game, you have the 3 main options, and you could say, okay, any one of them makes logical sense. I mean, yeah, I like Pi and all, but she's got Yada. There's no point, right? So really, it's between Adley, Alcade, and Shino. And I get why the game pulled the, hey, I think Shino's doing it herself because there's a reason behind it. The relationship with Shino and Haseo is much like Ovan. It's complicated. It's not what is at first glance. I think it's different for each person, and there's so many different ways you can look at it. Because it's not the same depending on who's talking. Because I've always kind of felt that there is something there, and I do believe Shino does like Haseo in an intimate way. But I don't think she's willing to admit that. Because I don't think that's what she would want. A lot of Shino's interactions with Haseo and Ovan are revolving around Ovan. Even most of her first words always have a tinge of talking about Ovan more. So it's never directly stated, but it's kind of an implication that she thinks of Haseo more as a brother, whether little brother or older brother, whatever, it doesn't matter, but she protects him from himself. And she does like him in that way. Otherwise she wouldn't have given him his phone number. And she knows what he thinks about her. She's not dumb. She's pretty good at intuiting things, especially in Roots. She's kind of the mother of the group, and Ovan is the father of the group, but she's, by herself mostly. But it always seems like she cares more about Ovan, or wanting to get Ovan's attention, but it's more kind of unspoken that they don't even need to do it. They just kind of are together in a way. It's one of those unspoken bond sort of situations where I don't think Haseo ever mentions it. To him, the romance would be, I need to confess, or I already know that I like her and I'm going through hell or high water, and a lot of it is complicated by the fact that she gets PK'd by Ovan, and that doesn't help. But under most circumstances, I think she thinks of this as more familial. You know, I remember Lee and I were talking about Fruits Basket. The same thing applies to some of the characters in that. You can like somebody but not love them in that romantic sense. It's sort of that way. Oh, God! Well. Alright, game. Well, we're just gonna have a nice time. Nice little chat, aren't we? Well, let's go then. Okay, so let's just chat. I mean, I'll get into boss fights, but whatever. I'll just chat. Let's go to level 50. Fuck you. But yes. Shino always kind of talks about things in the scope of what would Ovan do? What can I do for Ovan, or what would Ovan do if he was here? But she's always aware that Haseo is kind of pining for her in a different way. So it's not that she's afraid of reciprocating the feelings. In under circumstances, she probably would. But it's not something she's going to pursue herself. Even with that, like, lit honeysuckle stuff or anything like that, she's not pursuing Haseo the way he's pursuing her. And it's not even unrequited. That's a different story. Tabby is unrequited. Tabby is definitely more unrequited. It doesn't even get brought up. Haseo wouldn't even bat an eye, even if Tabby was to mention anything. But in terms of chemistry of characters, like Shino and Haseo obviously work together because they've been together so long as friends. I did. You suck. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I totally did hit a 25 combo. I know I did. So shut the fuck up, game. But anyway, you fight bosses every 5 areas. Not that I give a shit, because I'm gonna destroy everything. But when it comes to chemistry, like Shino and Haseo obviously have it. Because of their affiliations with being in the Twilight Brigade, and even Tabby to an extent. Like, begrudgingly Haseo would be around her. Kind of in the same way early Haseo and Adelie would be around each other. Don't shoot your ass to me. Dork. But I'd say from day one, it was almost like love at first sight kind of thing, but also more, please take care of me because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a lost soul, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. You and Ovan have done everything for me, and I respect you. And then, obviously, the romance kind of flew from there. But as we can already tell, like, between their interactions, it's pretty obvious that if they were to pursue each other, it wouldn't seem out of place. Because it doesn't. Oh, good for save points, yeah. There aren't save points in 50 or above, it looks like. Or teleporters, I guess. There's got to be a save point somewhere. But the thing at play here, again, is I think love has to be kind of a two-way street in a way. And that's why, if I'm thinking about it logically, I don't sit here and put Shino as an option. Personally, I like her more than Adelie, just because personality-wise, she's more the profile of somebody that, well, I think Haseo would actually like more. And personally, I like her attitude a lot more. But does that say anything about Adelie? No, it just says more about, okay, of the two, I don't have such a big issue, I think. Lucky Fatebook. Always lucky. But again, I'm not going to show off Shino's ending, because it's been decided game-wise, and, you know, I'd say out of character-wise, you can kind of gauge. Shino would always kind of distance herself. She doesn't mind being friends, but she doesn't think Haseo in that way, that it's gonna be okay. It would end up being one of those things where she would just constantly talk about finding Ovan and being around Ovan, and not in a stalkerish kind of way, but
Don't let your guard down.
just in that subtle, like, kind of always back of your mind kind of way. It's like she always likes him more, and again, in that unspoken way. So Shino would know. So then it brings in Adelie or Elcade. Okay, well, let's talk about Adelie, because there's a lot to talk about with Adelie, and good and bad. Adelie is interesting. Adelie comes across to me as... Well, I sure as shit don't need that. Adelie comes across to me as somebody that the game would want you to think is worth more than she looks. And I don't mean this to be demeaning, but I've kind of always felt this way. I don't think of Adelie as somebody who Haseo would ever go for. And this is one of those opposites attract sort of situations where it's just like, why are they even together? And I'm not even talking strictly the growth that, like, from Volume 1 to Volume 2, Volume 3, whatever. I'm saying as people. They just don't mix. They just don't mix at all. They don't mix well as characters. Haseo is very straightforward. And yeah, he eventually starts caring for people and wants to see friends succeed and all that, but he just bulldozes his way through situations. Not like a moron, but just one-track mind. I will get what I want, and I don't care what you say, I'm going to get it done. Adelie is super naive and just constantly getting herself in trouble. It gets better, and especially after the Ines situation with Sakaki and all that. Sure, it makes total sense. I get that. But I'm always reminded of the first couple of scenes where Adelie just goes off and talks about birds and not wanting to hurt anybody and whatever. And it's like, even though that goes away and it turns into more, I'm just here to help people and I want to do my own thing. Even though she stands up for herself, it doesn't change. Like, just look at her interaction, just the weird interactions with Haseo and Shino. Like, she doesn't even just, she just is like unnerved by the whole thing. She's like, she's a third wheel. She doesn't want to be there. Even if Shino did ask her to be there, it just doesn't work. You know? And you're just constantly reminded that it's like, I'm not her.
I didn't even break a sweat.
And then she goes on these little things because Ovan's fucking around with her. She's saying, you're never looking at me. Why are you looking at me? And again, I get it. You get around a person enough, I think eventually you'll like them to a point. But I don't know if it's something natural that Haseo would be doing if the situation weren't so crazy that it would happen. I think of this sort of like friendship as I would like Squall and Renoa from Final Fantasy VIII. And I know I bring them up a lot, but again, they are the absolute opposites. And god damn it, I went the wrong way. But, sure, do opposites attract? Yes, they can. Sure, I can buy that. Especially given what Haseo has done with or for Adelie. Yeah, I could see them growing together as people. But it just has this element of forced narrative in it, which never set right with me, and it never will. When you kind of, like, I am not against romance. I'm not against romance. In fact, I like romance as a storytelling tool. In fact, it is one of the easiest ones to do. It's just the hardest to actually execute. Because you can put any number of fucking shows and any number of cartoons and any number of anime and any number of bullshit. Romance is easy to do. It's hard to make effective when, like, all you're really doing is doing it for the sake of doing it. And I think, in a subtle way, this game is trying to make Adelie and Haseo a thing, even though I don't really buy it, ever. Probably because they're trying to force it when it shouldn't really need to be forced. Because Adelie comes across very meek and weak-willed, and, like, outside of being an epitaph user, what does she do that Haseo ever does the same thing? And to be fair, what do we know about Haseo other than I'm an epitaph user and I like to fight people? Same difference. But we learn that he's there for a reason. He's trying to find Ovan and Shino for different reasons. Like, he already has people that he's caring for, and again, interacting with people, and I'm getting this a little bit with other interactions online here and there. Like, I get it. You be by yourself for so long, and then you're actually talking with people or dealing with people on a daily basis. It does kind of change you. You know? But at the same time, you're I'm bullheaded like Haseo is. I live my life very straightforward. I do the same fucking thing every single day, and I do what needs to be done for me most of the time. You know? I do this because I find it fun. But it's one of those weird situations where it's kind of tough being around someone where you don't really know them and you don't really kind of like them, but you don't want to admit it. As opposed to somebody that you can actually be around, but you know, you're not always the same, you know, you don't always work around the people the same way, but you don't mind them and you actually enjoy spending time with them. There's a difference. To me, it feels like Haseo and Adelie are those kind of people that would begrudgingly be around each other to the point where after a while it just becomes commonplace and you don't think about it, and it just is like, oh, remember when we used to not really like each other? And like, sure, that takes some growth and understanding, but it's also like, I don't really buy that as a storytelling thing unless you're trying to drive conflict. Because much like the Squall Renoa thing, they don't really see eye to eye, and the game is kind of forcing it quite a bit. And I don't mind forcing a narrative. I don't mind forcing a narrative, like, if you are, like, specifically a romance show. Like, here's the dude, here is the girl, You kind of already know that you're gonna be there. I kind of already knew that Squall and Renoa, from the box art to the whatever, to the then and it, you know, there's not really anything you can do to stop it. So you can kind of just begrudgingly kind of accept that it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and that's what the story is gonna tell you, and it's like, alright, whatever, you know. Versus a harem where it's kind of like, well, you're given the option, right? And I can't tell how many other times, like, say, watching quintuplets or something, I'm just like, well, what about that person? Like, what about that person, you know? And I even discussed it when I was talking about quintuplets in a podcast a while back, was people who force romance are not really in love with a person, I don't think. And if you have to force yourself to like somebody, then it's not gonna work. And even if you say that, like, after, like, early Volume 1 or Volume 2, when like, Haseo slowly stops being a dick, or at the end of Volume 2, when Adelie is, you know, like, Haseo is the one that's helping me. Not because it's getting anything, he's not getting anything out of it. You know, versus the Sakaki thing where he was just using her. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, it always feels like she's relying on him way more than he's relying on her, and it doesn't ever feel like a two-way street, and it just seems like the game is doing it just because these are the two main characters, deal with it. So I've never really liked that. And I kind of reject the game telling you that. I would have been more okay with, like, Shino and Haseo just even with the Ovan situation, just saying, alright, well, we finally got back together. It's done. If they would have stuck to that landing. But no, the game is just like, well, Adelie's there. Shino knows, and Shino kind of doesn't, so let's just say, he's going for Adelie. Like, okay. Again, he's kind of forcing it. Even if she's saying something like, be honest with yourself. I'm like, really? Adelie's the one he's going for? I mean, not really understanding why. Once they've kind of done everything, it's more like, hey, I'm here too. Like, I spent more time with Yata and Pai in the middle of Volume 3 than I did with Adelie, because her story was kind of done. Outside of doing the poking the fun at the midway point of Volume 2, they didn't really show romantic feelings. And again, it doesn't have to be romantic. But if you're going to lean in that direction, my thought process has always kind of been, what chemistry is there with people? Can you look at two people in a situation, whether it's a game or a movie or a book or whatever, an anime, and look at them and say, yeah, I can see these two hanging out, not because they're learning to like each other, but because, like, they hit it off. And you know who fits that bill better than anybody else? Right there. And I said it from day one. And I've been saying it from day one, and I don't know how much the game was expecting that. Because again, I think the game is smart enough to let people make their own decisions, because I guess that's what the end of the game was trying to tell you, was that you can kind of pick whomever. But Haseo and Alcade from day one, when they were together, felt more like people that would just jive together. Because they have similar backgrounds. Not the, oh my god, I've been suffering and people have been PK'd and all this junk. And no, what I'm talking about was just their initial, like, I'm a member of the arena. I like to stab things, and I like power. And I'm like gonna kick people's asses. Alcade, her thing is, I stab things really hard. Let's go stab stuff really hard. Let's go. But then she's recognizing in her scene, it's like, I kind of do it for show. I'm not really as strong-willed as I think I am. You know? But not even in, like, the Saku Tsundere kind of way. I mean, it's there, but she kind of rolls with it. It just feels like it's natural. And that's the same vibe. Because Volume 2, their interactions felt like natural. It felt like, hey, let's go fight some dudes to level up because we're doing it. Not because I asked you to, but because, well, that's, you know, we're gonna do it anyway, might as well. Let's have some fun with it. And then Alkaid is smart enough to kind of lean into it when she kind of realizes, oh shit, I wasn't expecting you to fall, you know, because it was kind of that unexpected sort of realization, and that's what makes it even better. Rather than this preordained fatalistic, hey, Adelie and Haseo have been together for all games, so it's gonna happen, it became, alright, well, Alkaid kind of bumblefucked her way into a, wait, this is what you meant? Oh, shit. And her reaction was like, but then she leans into it. That's the best part. She leans into that part and says, alright, I actually do kind of like this guy. I mean, I was just kind of helping him, and now, but, you know, it's not that bad, you know? And then just, you know, and not even in the super stupid teasing kind of way, but eventually being the, like, yeah, together. And just fucking with Adelie the entire time, because it's the perfect setup for a love triangle. Because I was always on Alkaid's side of things, because again, these two have similar party makeup, similar styles, similar character thought processes. And yeah, even if the opposites attract sort of situation, these seem like people that want to do the same things. These people sound like, hey, let's grab a burger, or let's go out to do stuff. And like, it wouldn't seem like, oh, hey, I'm forcing you to be with me because reasons. It might get to that point. But Alkaid's always like, I'm just here, you know, I can respect your space, but let's just have fun, you know. She doesn't need Haseo to be around him. That's always the thing that's kind of bugged me about Adelie, is the way her mental makeup is, admittedly, you know, a seriously shitty situation. Being told all your life that you can't fit in and you shouldn't fit in and you're a fake, you know. That fucks with your head, and it's really sad and all, but it seems like being very clingy and being very needy is not the same thing as being somebody in love, right? And it just feels like Adelie is around Haseo because Haseo has been like the one person to just like pick her up and even kind of slap some sense into her sometimes, like, you do it yourself. I'm not going to do it for you, you know. But it always felt like she would be needy. And until Volume 3, where just the narrative ends, it's just like, whatever. But with Alkaid, it was, hey, I want to be around you because you're helping me, but I also kind of like you. You know? Because I'm always a sucker for people having the same thought processes or the same things they're into, because I'm of the mentality that it is very, very hard to get into things. If you're an extrovert and you can be like, hey, I like to try this and this and this and this and this and it's cool, and okay, cool, let's try that, you know. I don't mind being around people. No. I suck at dealing with people. I hang around with Lee a lot, but I don't think it was one of those things where it just naturally happened. I mean, it naturally happened, but there were things that Lee and I do have stuff in common, you know. That's why we do these watch parties, and that's why she is part of these, because it doesn't feel like, you know, again, and again, I'm not saying in a romantic context at all. I'm saying in a being around a person sort of context, to bring it back to that narrative situation. It's like, Lee is my friend and I don't question it, but there are things that she's into that I'm into. If I had nothing to go by, and I think Lee can say this too, I'm not the type of person to go seeking out things that I don't know. I have to be dragged kicking and screaming Ned Flanders style into watching anything. And sometimes that benefits me. I watched Fruits Basket and Sailor Moon and it was great. You know? But I would have never watched those things. But it was still an anime, right? Thank God camera was trying to break. Okay, game, do you want to not do that? I'm wondering if OBS just wants to break and then it hasn't decided if it's gonna. This is not me. Yeah, it's not the game, it's OBS doing it. How about... Alright. Alright, if you're gonna do that... Yeah. I know. I'll call it here, and I'll get back to my thought in the next episode. If it's gonna keep doing this, then I'm gonna restart it. We're 36 minutes in. But yeah, we'll make it like a two-parter, I guess. That sounds fair, I think. So I have to remember, I was talking about Alcade, Haseo, and then spending time doing watch parties with Lee and playing stuff and playing with Gaia and whatnot. That's where I was. Okay, cool. I'll remember that's where I was in the next episode. So, yeah. Hopefully, OBS stops being dumb and actually tries not to suck. So we'll see next time.